Sihara paused for a moment of composure as she stood before the grand doors to the banquet hall. The first soiree of the new century. The second most important event during the twin moons of peace. Sebastian stood at her side. He glanced at his time stone and the line of nobles and highborns entering the banquet hall. They were waiting for the moment when the doorman would announce their presence. Sarah took a deep breath to calm her mind and worked a disarming smile onto her face. It was no use thinking of the fact that the world hung on a thread, a small hope that they could forge an alliance between their people. She had a wedding to plan. She had to trust that her fathko would find the answer. Sebastian looked almost regal in his dark blue suit. He rarely wore anything other than black. He must reserve extravagant colors for special occasions. Taja Sahara Dayal, daughter of the Taj of the United Republics of Elementi, accompanied by Sikar Sebastian Vaughan of the Italian Republic of Elementi. The doorman announced their names with a tired, monotone voice. Sahara was in her element among the crowd. The rise and fall of conspiratorial whispers hissed like the ebb and flow of the tide. Elementi and Mineralite stood apart from each other, stiffly separating the banquet hall by country. The judging eyes of the highborns and nobles burned into the back of her head as they sought new information to turn the tide of the new era in their favor. Lord Ambassador Kern Calistine of Mineral, accompanied by Lady Ambassador Vivian Calistine of Mineral. The doorman offered a much more enthusiastic announcement about Jaden's parents. The slight did not escape her notice. A group of highborns ambushed Sebastian. They wanted to know his opinion on some unimportant topic that obviously did not interest him in the least. They reluctantly parted him from Sahara and her companion Noelle. She imagined the tables groaning under the weight of the food and drinks, and even the smell of her favorite buttercream cookies did nothing to inspire her hunger. Ancient tapestries adorned the walls. They must have raided her family's vault to decorate the banquet room. The mosaic floors positively sparkled from the work of the servants. Somehow this even did not cheer her up. She only saw the waste of it all. They should be celebrating the signing of the alliance and the beginning of peace. Smile, Taja, the court is watching. Noelle spoke between the fake smile plastered on her face. Taja Sahara! Victoria's familiar voice shook her from her morbid thoughts. Turning to greet her friend, Sahara burst out into laughter. Gone was her usual grace under all the layers of fabric and lace. How can you move in that thing? Victoria groaned, pressing the back of her hand against her forehead. I might faint any moment now, so don't say anything too surprising. Sarah gestured to her draped sari, held together by pins and knots. Oh, Kandara Victoria, your body was born to the west, but your heart lies with the north. Representative Raphael Cure from the Antanian Republic of Elementi, accompanied by Kandara Lucia Cure of the Antanian Republic of Elementi. The doorman offered another chipper announcement. Perhaps, Victoria said, fanning herself to keep cool. But had I been born in Vindish, I might not have met my wonderful husband. I will suffer all that Titania can throw at me as long as he's by my side. Are you gossiping about me again, Victoria? Her husband wore a cloak of muted colors woven into dizzying patterns. Gold bands held his cloak in place. His black hair was clean-shaven, and his dark skin provided a sharp contrast to Victoria's pale skin. It was his smile when he looked at his wife that made him handsome. Grand Admiral Gunter Ragos of Mineral, accompanied by Lady Greta Fiercy of Mineral. The doorman announced the Admiral of the Mineralite Armed Forces. Victoria swatted her husband's shoulder. Oh, shush you. I was not gossiping about you. She made a face. Well, not this time anyway. Victoria's husband, Sahara, and Noelle shared a laugh. Victoria spread her hands wide. I must introduce you. Elias, this is Taja Sahara and Sikara Noelle. They have been my best friends since, well, forever. This is my husband, the Honorable Elias of the Balar Republic. One of our brave soldiers. Sarah bowed her head, and Elias did the same. So that was why her family must have promoted Victoria from Sihara to Kandara. You must love him a great deal. I'm so happy for you. Victoria grinned and looked upon her husband with admiration. I'm glad you approved my decision. It's a welcome relief from the opinions of others. Sarah could only imagine the ire of the courts over her marriage, and sympathized. Changing the subject, she asked, Have you been on the front lines, Honorable Elias? It's all quiet on the Balar border. my opinion that the Animalians have taken the moon to regroup and prepare for a coordinated siege. Elias seemed uncomfortable around so many highborn men and women, wore the same expression she had seen in the mirror after she had debuted in the court. This little game that the Highborns played was a dangerous one to the uninitiated, and no doubt a knight would prefer a good sword fight instead of rumors, words, and implications. A bit overwhelming, isn't it? Noel offered a sympathetic smile. I grew up in the Antanian Mountains, far away from any politics. Appreciate everything you soldiers do to keep us safe. Elias relaxed a little. I don't know if I've seen this many mineralites in my entire life. Lord Neron Harkin, Duke of the Harkin province, the doorman announced. The hawkish lord headed for the drinks table, and he offered only a passing nod to her parents, the hosts of this soiree. His disrespect did not endear him to her. Victoria whispered, "Oh, how strange. He's a married man, yet he comes unaccompanied to the second most important soiree of the century." And he failed to pay his respects to my fathko. Sarah raised an eyebrow, inviting her friend to share all the juicy details. She could play this game as well as anyone else. Elias rolled his eyes. I will be over by the bar getting another drink. Victoria made an amused noise. You were the one who asked me to marry you, remember? Happiest day of my life. Elias kissed her forehead and disappeared into the crowd. Sarah covered her mouth. Noel gasped. Such a public display of affection. Sarah hooked her arm around Victoria's and led her to an empty table for the three of them. Oh, he's so sweet, Victoria. I really am happy for you. You're the first person to say that to me, you know. Victoria maneuvered into her seat, trying not to bust a seam. Emotions darkened her eyes. Noelle put a reassuring hand on her arm. That says more about them than you know. A server offered a platter of treats to the highborn women. Sarah plucked 3 little treats for the trio. I would never lie to you. You would have never found a highborn that would have made you happy. You're a free spirit, and I would hate to see you tied down to someone who'd never understand you. Someday, I hope my parents will understand that like you do. Victoria nibbled on the wafer-thin treat. Pity they don't realize they're losing something much more valuable than the approval of the court's fickle opinion. Sarah popped the treat into her mouth. Toasted wheat and rich cream melted into something like caramel. Mineralite dessert was the only exception to their terrible, tasteless cuisine. Victoria's eyes drifted back to Neron. But I do wonder why his wife isn't here. Have you heard anything? Noelle lowered her voice. Rumor has it that no one has seen her for the last couple of moons. Some people think she's sick. Victoria nodded. I heard that people think he's locked her up after finding out she inherited a large estate from her uncle. Sarah's eyes widened. Was it large enough to make her the head of their province? Victoria shrugged. It depends on who you ask. You should go talk to him. Maybe you can get some information from him. Why not you, if you're so curious? I'm a married woman now, Sihara. You aren't. He's unaccompanied. Victoria shooed her weight. Quick, he just stepped away. Victoria was far too good at playing this game. Sarah stood up, trying not to seem rushed. She made her way towards the table with the teas and other assorted drinks, intercepting Neron as he stepped away from the table laden with food. Sarah pressed her hands together and bowed from the shoulders. Lord Neron, how are you this lovely evening? Neron took her hand and kissed it, something innocuous to a mineralite, but unseemly to an elementee. His mischievous smile betrayed his less than savory intentions. Quite well. How are you, Taja? I find myself content. Sarah clasped her hands behind her. She watched her words around a married mineralite man who kissed the hand of a betrothed elementee woman. Neron cocked his head to the one side. Even with your 21st year coming up so soon. I find no reason to let age worry me. Her eyes found Sebastian of their own accord. Lady Josephine Ragos of Mineral, accompanied by Lord Ragos of Mineral, the doorman announced. Her blue dress proclaimed her status as the daughter of a man of industry in the king's home province of Ragos. So it must be true that the Sihara intends to marry you within the moon. Neron waved the server over, trading his empty glass for yet another. Our marriage has been arranged. Sarah declined the server. She had no interest in those strong drinks. You know, there are less than idealistic rumors floating around after what happened to your last courtship. Lord Neron peered at her from over the rim of his glass. But I'm sure you have nothing to worry about with this new suitor. Lady Emma advanced on the 2 from the left, saving her from having to answer that implication. Sarah pressed her hands together and bowed from the shoulders again. Lady Emra, how nice it is to see you again. Lady Taja. Emra inclined her head rather than curtsying. Sarah could see why. Her dress clung to her body, and there was no way she could manage a curtsy in that thing. Emra ignored the scandalous look she must be giving her and turned to Neron.
Where is your wife, my dear sister?
Lady Susan. Oh, Susan wanted to come, but she contracted a bad case of the fog and just wasn't up to a night of festivities. Lord Nero looked between the two women as if he were a child caught with his hand in the cookie jar, rather than a grown man in charge of running an entire province of a kingdom. Nero turned to Sihara. It was lovely speaking with you, Taja. I hope that things turned out well for you in that Sakar. No one would want your father to lose control of the ambassadorial halls because you were unable to secure a husband. That would be dreadful. Sarah clenched her jaw shut as she walked away. She did not trust herself to reply. Sebastian wasn't like her other suitors. He would not be so easily bought off by her uncle. Lady Emra waited till Niran had left before she spoke up again.
Don't take him too seriously. I bet he's just jealous that he can't marry you and get even more power. I don't know what my sister saw in him.
Sarah sighed. At least they could agree on that. Do you really think she is sick? Lady Emra shot her an incredulous look.
My sister just inherited our uncle's fortune, and now she's suddenly ill. What do you think?
Sarah shook her head. I don't know. I'll admit it doesn't sound convincing.
No, it doesn't. But you shouldn't worry about the internal politics of mineralite families. I will have the situation dealt with shortly.
Emma said, sounding all too similar to another mineralite Sahara knew.
Did you hear about those poor poisoned lords that died before the Moon of Peace?
Sarah feigned surprise. Emma couldn't possibly have found out the killer used an element he poisoned to kill those men. Jaden said he'd buried the evidence.
Their replacements are young and inexperienced, but the most shining examples of the height of mineralite genetic mastery.
The devious glint in Emma's eyes spoke volumes about how she felt about the replacements. She did not seem to care that someone had poisoned the men. Oh, Taja, you have to come with me. You'll never believe who brought their daughter. Victoria swept in like a knight in shining armor. Oh, Lady Emra, how nice it is to see you. You must tell me who your tailor is. That dress is something. Once Victoria led them out of Emra's earshot, Sarah breathed a sigh of relief. You're my hero. Victoria laughed. So, what did Lord Neron have to say? He told Lady Emra that his wife came down with a bad case of the fog and wasn't up to coming to the soiree tonight. Lady Emra said she'll take care of the situation. She doesn't believe his story either. But what did he say to you before Emma approached you two? Oh, he asked about my arranged marriage to Sihara Sebastian. Sarah tried to seem nonchalant. She would not perpetuate the disrespectful lord's rumors. She loved Victoria, but she couldn't keep a secret if her life depended on it. Noelle offered her a look that said she didn't believe that was the whole story. The musicians warmed up, playing pieces of a lively tune. Their choice of instruments marked the first dance as one from Mineralite. The din of the banquet hall quieted as the couples abandoned their single friends and flooded the dance floor. Victoria saw him first. Quick, Sarah, stand up. Here comes your dashing prince. Sebastian handed off his empty glass to the nearest server and approached the two ladies with a respectful bow. I thought I might find you two together. Sebastian offered his hand. Might I have this dance, Taja Sahara? Sahara accepted his hand. I was worried you'd talk with those highborns forever. Sebastian led her to the dance floor. With one hand clasped and the other on his shoulder, the music started in earnest. They joined the march of the dancers, taking 2 steps back in time with the music. Now they joined the circle of spinning dancers as they moved to the edge of the dance floor. His pace was brisk, his movements precise, and his smile was almost genuine. For the span of a song, Sahara could almost forget her troubles. At the end of the dance, they bowed to each other and applauded the musicians. A handful of dancers left the floor. The next tune was slow and intimate. Sebastian raised an eyebrow when she didn't leave the dance floor. Another dance. Sarah smiled and took his hand. He pulled her closer than before. His hand was above her hip, and they swayed with the music. Step back, step forward, step to the side, and repeat. The slow dance allowed for a free conversation. The map collection that I found at the festival has some of the best examples of pre-kingdom era and mineralite cartography that I've ever seen. His blue eyes lit up at the mention of his precious maps. High praise from an expert. Perhaps you can show me tomorrow. I've never seen mineralite maps. At his pleased expression, she wondered if her compliment had been too much. Didn't want his head to get too large. She changed the subject. I found a strange little notebook with a language I've never seen before. Someone said it looked similar to the carvings of the ruins, and I would love your opinion on it. Sebastian dipped her back and whispered ever so softly in her ear. Shall we look at it tonight, my lovely Rose? As soon as he pulled her out of the dip, Sahara glared. That was her nickname. Sebastian frowned. You should be honored to replace my late wife. Replace her? Sarah whispered, fury rising in her brains. How could you think anyone would be honored to replace someone? I find you beautiful, just as I found her beautiful. We both share a love of languages, an unfailing sense of loyalty, and the ability to make even the gloomiest day bright again. Sebastian's expression darkened. There was a dangerous edge of chaos in his eyes. You only want to marry me because you think I look like her. Sarah understood. The reason he was so infatuated with her. He didn't see something in her that no one else did. He only saw her appearance. She was only a replacement for the lost. He didn't even know her. The fact that I would let you take the place as one so beloved as Rosabella should speak fathoms of my love for you. Sebastian spat the words like venom, his grip on her waist tightening. Sarah did everything she could to keep from tearing away from him and leaving him right there in the middle of the dance floor. Jaden appeared at her side and shared a look of sympathy. Sakar, let's not ruin this evening with an argument. Shall we trade partners? You stay out of this, boy. I've had just enough of your interference, Sebastian snapped. Well, now they had the attention of everyone on the dance floor. Jaden's dancing partner, Lady Josephine, frowned at Sebastian's sudden outburst. Even the musicians seemed to feel awkward as they tried to continue the tune. I don't know what you're talking about. Jaden's placating expression did not have the intended effect. Sebastian sneered. I know what you're trying to do, trying to get close to the Taj through his daughter. Jaden lowered his voice. What I'm trying to do is make sure you don't make a scene and ruin this nice evening for everyone. Oh, right. Like I believe that. You think you're so clever, don't you? Well, you don't fool me. Come with me, Sihara, and we'll finish this conversation privately. Sarah tried to regain her composure, but her hands trembled of their own accord. I think I'd rather clear my head and get some fresh air. Sebastian made a grab for her arm, and she flinched. Oh, Creator, please let him see sense. Her fathko cleared his throat. I don't know if you heard her, but I believe my daughter said she would like to get some fresh air. Why don't you let the lady clear her head while I get you a drink and we talk for a moment, Sarah shot her fathko an appreciative glance and made her way to the closest balcony. The purple light of the twin moons was a beautiful and strange sight to behold. It felt like early morning in the middle of the night, and she didn't even care, even in the slightest. She gripped the trellis so hard her knuckles turned white. It had been too much to ask for someone to love her, not for her fathko's power or her family's wealth, and certainly not because she bore a passing resemblance to her long-dead cousin. The wind picked up, kicking up leaves and sand from the gardens below. The balcony overlooked the grounds of the ambassadorial halls. You could see the border of Mineral and her home, the Vindish Republic, from here. The door opened with a great clatter. Sarah did not turn. She did not want someone to see that she had been crying. I want to be alone. Her voice sounded pitiful even to her ears. Are you all right? Did he hurt you? Mikhail paid no attention to her request, but he stayed a respectful distance away. He didn't harm me. Sarah hugged herself, shivering against the cold. A warm coat slid onto her shoulders, and she looked up at Mikhail, her ever faithful guardian. His presence was a calming balm on her nerves. What happened? I heard him shouting at Lord Jaden. Mikhail's face was full of concern. It's nothing. I didn't mean to cause all this trouble. Sarah bit her lip, but did not think to stop the determined tears. It's just, well, I thought I had finally found someone who loved me. Someone I could perhaps even grow to love in time. The words suddenly seemed to make Mikhail even more concerned. Sarah, you need to tell me what he did. I cannot protect you if you don't tell me what happened. He called me his lovely Rose. It was his name for his first wife, Rosabella. Sarah shuddered. My cousin, who died 10 years ago. I just didn't realize he was marrying me to replace her. He said that. Sarah nodded. He said I should be honored. Mikhail said nothing for a few minutes, but his expression spoke volumes. What are you going to do? Sarah exhaled. I don't know if there's anything I can do. If I don't marry him, my uncle will become Taj. My uncle will scrap the alliance, and the Animalians will conquer the whole world. Somehow, saying it out loud filled her with a new sense of courage. They may not allow me to vote or become the next Taj in my father's place, but I can do this for my people. I will not allow my personal considerations to stop the alliance. This is a sacrifice I must make to put an end to a century of war, and I will do it. I hope you guys enjoyed Chapter 7. I cannot wait to read to you guys Chapter 8. It is the same scene, but from Jaden's perspective. So you get to see what he's been up to, and you get to see a completely different perspective on everything that just happened. A version of this chapter has actually existed since the very first draft of this novel, through all of the different iterations and plots that I have done. So it was a lot of fun to be able to bring this to life. would love to hear in the comments how you would react to Sahara's reveal if he was your fiance. um, be sure to check it back in next week. We're going to switch things up again and see things from Jaden's perspective in changing tempos. An alliance is a fragile thing, and brittle bribes may be the only thing keeping it together. Join us for a secret agreement, a misunderstanding, and a slew of bribes. A little excerpt for all of you. The banquet room, a haven from the war where the nobles and highborns drank heavily and strutted about bedecked in the most elegant finery. Sure, there were fewer guests, less variety in the food, and the drinks of less and lesser vintage. But from all appearances, the courts continued with life as usual. If you'd only attended the endless soirees and balls, you would have a difficult time believing there was a war being fought outside the ambassadorial halls. But more political deals and defeats happened in the ballroom's revelry than in even the meeting halls. Thank you guys for joining me. I really enjoyed sharing this with all of you. It's a lot of fun to bring these chapters to life, and I hope that you guys enjoyed.